This presentation will help you understand the unique rocket math way of solving word problems. In short, here's what we do. We begin by teaching students to solve for the unknown in an equation. Then we teach a formula for each type of problem we teach. Once they know the formula, students find the labels for what's known in the problem. Then they put the question mark over what is asked for in the problem. Then they enter the known numbers over the correct labels. Then they solve for the unknown in the number sentence. The last step in our method of solving word problems is to solve for the unknown, which can be in any of three positions in the formula. So first we teach the students what to do to solve for the unknown. We teach the rule that in order to find the sum, you add the numbers you have. But if you know the sum, you need to subtract. The first unit, 3A, is learning to apply this rule to number sentences. We want students to use the set of steps in the upper right of the worksheet to solve the problem. They begin by reading the problem and reciting the rule. Then they look at the problem and note whether or not we already have the sum. We have a note that the sum is at the right end of the number sentence. They apply the rule to decide if they are to add the two numbers or subtract one from the sum. At the end of this unit, students are able to choose the correct operation and solve for the unknown in number sentences. Note, students are expected to be able to add and subtract two-digit numbers with regrouping to solve these word problems. Rocket Math teaches formulas for each type of problem. Scientists use formulas to describe the relationships among variables, such as time multiplied by velocity equals distance, or mass multiplied by acceleration equals force. Rocket Math word problems do the same thing. The formula states the relationship, and when you know two of the variables, you can determine the third by solving for the unknown. This is a very sophisticated way to solve word problems, as well as being effective and easy to learn. Unit 3B teaches classification type problems. These are problems that discuss classes of things in which there are two smaller classes that are part of a larger class. For example, a problem about boys, girls, and children has three classes, one of which is the biggest class, children, containing the other two classes, boys and girls. The formula we teach is class plus class equals biggest class, where the two smaller classes add together to equal the biggest class. Following the steps in the upper right corner, students begin with step 1, which is to read the problem aloud. In step 2, students learn to underline the classes in this type of problem. Then in step 3, they identify the largest class and put that under the third blank in the number sentence. Step 4, they put the two smaller classes under the first two blanks. Step 5, they put the question mark over the class that is asked about in the question, and they fill in the known numbers over the correct blanks. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same. Students write the two known numbers at the right of the problem, decide whether to add or subtract, find the answer, and affix the label. Reminder, students are expected to be able to add and subtract two-digit numbers with regrouping to solve these word problems. Unit 3C teaches comparing problems, where two things are being compared. The formula is fewer plus difference equals more, meaning the amount of the one that has fewer plus the difference between the two equals the amount of the one that is more. After reading the problem, in step 2, students underline the sentence that compares the two things, which we call the comparing sentence. In step 3, they cover the number and read the comparing sentence, which tells them which one of the two things being compared is more. Step 4 is the one that is more gets written under the third blank. Step 5, the one with fewer numbers gets written under the first blank, or diff for difference is written under the middle blank. Step 6, they put either the question mark or the number for difference from the comparing sentence over the diff blank. Step 7, the question mark goes over the thing named in the question, and the known numbers go over their corresponding titles. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same. Finally, in the last 3 steps, they solve for the unknown variable. Unit 3D, we present both comparing and classification problems intermixed. We help students to underline either the classes or the comparing sentence. Once they've identified the problem type, they follow the steps they learned in the past 2 units to solve the problem. Unit 3E, we present gain problems. These are problems in which the action of the problem is about getting more of something. The formula is start plus gain equals end, where the amount that was started with plus the number of things gained equals the amount at the end. In step 2, students underline the sentence that tells about gaining or getting more of something. Then students fill in under the blanks with start plus gain equals end. They put the amount gained over gain, or if the problem asks for the amount gained, they put the question mark above. Then, above the start and end blanks, they either put the known number or the question mark. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same. Unit 3F, we present lose problems. These are problems in which the action of the problem is about losing or coming to have less of something. The formula is end plus lose equals start. In step 2, students underline the sentence that describes losing or coming to have less of something. They write end plus lose equals start under the blanks. Students fill in the question mark from the question in the problem and the known amounts over the other blanks. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same. Unit 3G, we present both gain and lose problems intermixed. We help students to underline either the gain or lose sentence. Once they've identified the problem type, then they enter the formula under the blanks. Next, they fill in the known amounts and the question mark. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same. Unit 3H, we present all 4 types of problems learned so far intermixed: classification, comparing, gain, and lose. Students look for the key words or the key sentence that they are to underline. They fill in the key terms under the blanks. They enter the known numbers and the question mark over what is being asked. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same. Unit 3I, we teach the rule for solving multiplication and division number sentences. This is parallel to what we did in Unit 3A with addition and subtraction number sentences. In a multiplication number sentence, the product is at the right end of the sentence. If you want to find the product, you must multiply the 2 other numbers. If you know the product and you want to find one of the smaller numbers, you must divide. Again, we teach the rule, have students apply the rule, and solve the problem. Note, in the last 3 units, students need to be able to multiply and divide single-digit facts to solve the problems. Unit 3J, we teach how to solve problems that contain groups of equal size. There must be groups of equal size to require multiplication or division. The formula is groups times things per group equals things. Whenever you have groups of equal size, this formula will work to describe the relationships. Step 2, students look for and circle a signal word in the sentence that describes the groups of equal size. The signal word has to be either each, every, per, or a. In step 3, they underline the sentence that describes the groups of equal size. Step 4, from the underlined sentence, they select the word that describes the groups and write that under the first blank. Step 5, they write the things that are in each group under the third blank. Step 6, they write the things per group for this problem under the middle blank. Step 7, they put the known quantities over the blanks and the question mark over the question. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same, but using multiplication or division here. Reminder, In these last 3 units, students need to be able to multiply and divide single-digit facts to solve these problems. Unit 3K mixes all 5 types of problems that have been learned: classification, comparing, gain, lose, and groups of equal size. In step 2, students underline the key information that tells them what kind of problem they're looking at. Step 3, they decide if they're looking at groups of equal size and therefore need to set up a multiplication number sentence, or one of the other types of problem and set up an addition number sentence. Step 4, they find one of the underlined labels and write it under the correct blank. Step 5, they put the labels under the other blanks. Step 6, they put the question mark over the thing that's being asked about, and then numbers over the other blanks. Step 7, they choose the operation. Once the problem is understood and correctly laid out, the final steps are always the same. You can see that by following these steps and these procedures, the solutions follow a distinct pattern. Students begin by reading the problem. Next, they underline the key information that identifies the problem type. Then they enter the labels. Next, they put the question mark over the variable that's in the question. Next, they enter the known quantities. Then they decide the arithmetic operation and use it to find the answer and label it. With this systematic set of procedures, you'll be able to look at a student's work and see exactly where they went wrong. That's kind of important if you expect to be able to help them correct their errors.